It was a sunny afternoon in early summer when Mike and Sarah from Stuttgart finally reached their destination. After their two kids had moved out and the empty nest suddenly felt way too quiet, they had treated themselves to something special. 2 weeks of vacation in the beautiful Salzkammergut region of Austria. They had booked a vacation apartment online. It seemed to be the only one in the house. The landlords apparently lived there themselves. The drive from Stuttgart to Bad Ischl had taken about 5 hours. When they arrived, the house stood quietly on a side street, surrounded by majestic green mountains. The air smelled of forest and a hint of the nearby Traun River. Shortly after they parked, the landlady came out of the house. She was in her early 50s, slim, with well-groomed dark hair. Her name was Elizabeth. She greeted them with a brief smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Something heavy seemed to weigh on her. She showed them the apartment on the second floor, cozy and nicely furnished, with a small kitchen, a balcony, and a view towards Sirius Kogel. Everything was clean and thoughtfully prepared, but Elizabeth herself seemed like a shadow of a person. The next morning, while Sarah still had a few practical questions about trash collection and Wi-Fi, they ran into Elizabeth again in the garden. Sarah could sense the woman's sadness so clearly that she couldn't stay silent. "Elizabeth, are you doing okay?" she asked gently. The landlady stopped. She tried to hold back her tears, but it was difficult. After a long pause, she said quietly, "No. 4 weeks ago, my husband left me. He filed for divorce." The words hung heavy in the air. Mike and Sarah exchanged a quick glance. Then Mike said softly, "We're really sorry to hear that. If you'd like, we could sit down some evening and just talk. Only if you want. We're not counselors, but we're good listeners." At first, Elizabeth shook her head. "That's kind of you, but I don't want to ruin your vacation." She turned and walked quickly back into the house. 4 days passed. The couple enjoyed their first outings. They strolled through the spa park, visited the imperial villa where Emperor Franz Joseph had once spent his summers, and rode the Katrin cable car up to the local mountain. The view was breathtaking. The panorama stretched across Hallstatter Lake all the way to the snow-capped peaks in the distance. Yet they kept thinking about Elizabeth. On the 5th evening, they met her by chance as they were coming home. Elizabeth was standing at the garden gate. This time, she was the one who started the conversation. In a quiet, uncertain voice, she said, "If it's not too much to ask, I'd really like to talk with you. I don't have anyone here I can truly trust." The three of them sat together on the terrace. The evening sun bathed the mountains in golden light. And then Elizabeth told her story, haltingly, with many tears and barely suppressed pain. Her husband had suppressed her for years, with constant criticism, control, and emotional coldness. She had run the vacation apartments almost single-handedly while he withdrew. And then, 4 weeks earlier, he had left, for a much younger woman. Now Elizabeth was left alone with the big house, the 2 vacation units, the ongoing costs, the divorce proceedings, and a heart that felt shattered into 1,000 pieces. "I feel so worthless," she whispered, "like I gave my whole life to someone who just threw me away in the end." Mike and Sarah listened for a long time. They barely interrupted. When Elizabeth had finished, Sarah said softly, "Elizabeth, we can't take your pain away, but we believe there is someone who can. Jesus. He sees your pain. He knows every tear you've cried, and he can lift you out of this dark cycle, not overnight, but step by step." Over the following 14 days, a special bond developed. They met in the evenings again and again, sometimes for just 10 minutes, sometimes longer. Mike and Sarah spoke gently about Jesus, about forgiveness, new beginnings, and a God who heals broken hearts and never leaves the abandoned alone. Elizabeth listened. She nodded sometimes, cried often, and asked questions. But she didn't respond with great enthusiasm. The pain still seemed too fresh, the wound too deep. On their last day of vacation, they exchanged phone numbers. Elizabeth hugged them both for a long time. "Thank you for not just being guests," she said. "You actually listened to me." 4 weeks later, the first message arrived, Elizabeth wrote, "I met an old friend and told her my story. She went through something similar and shared about her faith. It really made me think. I've been reflecting again on everything you told me." Mike and Sarah replied warmly and encouraged her to keep going. After that, they heard nothing for 2 months. Then, one evening, Sarah's phone rang. It was Elizabeth. Her voice sounded different, not quite as heavy anymore. "I want to change my life now," she said. "The divorce is moving forward. The house and the vacation apartments are completely overwhelming me. I don't know what to do anymore. Can you give me some advice?" The couple took their time. In several phone calls, they talked with Elizabeth about practical steps, how she might sell the big house and move into a smaller rental apartment, how she could hand over or sell the vacation units professionally, and most importantly, how she could invite Jesus into her life, not just as an idea, but as a living companion. Elizabeth began putting things into action. She sought counseling, started praying, read the Bible, and joined a small Christian group nearby. Over a year later, Mike and Sarah were back in Bottischil, this time staying in a different place. Elizabeth reached out again. This time, her voice sounded bright and full of joy. "I sold the house and the vacation apartments," she told them excitedly. "I'm living temporarily in a lovely little rental apartment with a balcony and a mountain view. It's so much lighter now. And do you know the most important thing? I've made a decision for Jesus, for real. I've given my life to him. He has shown me so much, what still lies ahead, how much good can still happen in my life. I no longer feel worthless. I feel loved. For the first time in many years, I have real hope again." She even laughed on the phone. That's how God heals. Not always instantly, but faithfully. Thank you for not just vacationing back then, but for making time for me. Mike and Sarah stood on the balcony of their new accommodation, looking out at the mountains. The sun was just setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Somewhere over there, in a small rental apartment in Bottischil, lived a woman whose heart had been made new. Sometimes it's the chance encounters during a vacation that God uses to turn an entire life around. A sad landlady, a couple of open hearts, and the God who makes broken things whole again.
If this story has touched you, please give it a like and subscribe. Share it with someone who's going through a tough time right now